Hi, this is Elijah, host of the podcast Songwriting for Songwriters. Thanks again for listening and for tuning in. My very special guest this week is songwriter Stacey. Cole's not only a great songwriter in his own right, but he's one half of the duo India Electric Company and a touring session musician in Midge Yule's live band. We had a really good conversation about his songwriting, his new record, finding peace and joy in songwriting and performing, and much, much more. So please do check out his music and this podcast. And if you haven't already, remember to like, share the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and on social media. Your sharing really helps us to grow the podcast. If you haven't already, you can pick up a copy of my book, The Songwriter's Handbook, on Amazon, in which there are 52 ideas that hopefully will ignite a spark of an idea for you for your own songwriting. So please, if you haven't, pick up a copy and enjoy this podcast, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Joining me today on my podcast, Songwriting for Songwriters, is my special guest, Stacey. Cole, how are you doing?
I'm really well, mate. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good, actually.
It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being my guest. I've got to say, I heard your name lots, and heard India Electric Company, the name India Electric Company, a lot on Six Music. DJ Tom Robinson, I know, is a fan of the band of yours and my band, so I kept on hearing your name around. And then I got to hear you sound checking at the Marine Theatre in Lyme Regis. And as a songwriter myself, as soon as I heard you sound check, I was like, shit, man, who's this guy and what is this music? This is stunning, because I truly hadn't really heard that much. I knew of you and of the band, but I hadn't I hadn't deep dived it. And then as soon as I heard you sound checking, I was just like, holy shit, this is like exactly my cup of tea, and I need to get Cole on the podcast like immediately.
That's so nice to hear. Yeah, Tom, I mean, as you know as well as I do, what a champion he is, and remains for new music. I can remember getting a phone call and saying, "Oh, we're going to go and do a little acoustic session on his show." We just moved to London, and it felt like this moment, this next step,
Yeah.
that we were going on, and just speaking to him off air and getting some advice, and his warmth and generosity, his extraordinary communicator as well as songwriter. And I think I place so much value in that time, and that Six Music, his show on a Saturday night. My God, I mean, it sounds old school, but I remember being like, right, we've got to get home to listen to it, and you'd
Yeah,
stay
I
in to
agree.
listen and
Yeah.
catch up on all the artists, and you'd go and Google them and listen to the tracks, and it was like this extraordinary community. It sounds like I'm talking about 40 years ago, in mixtapes, but it's so true. And I heard so much music from him and from that show that it's lovely to come full circle and to hear that someone heard us on that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
and yeah, it's
I mean,
great.
he will just stick with Tom for a second, actually, because he's
Mhm.
sort of stepped back a bit from Six Music, but
Yeah,
actually, I think something which is incredibly important to say, as you just said, as at the time, I think both of us were independent artists.
yeah.
To get the kind of nod or to have
Mhm.
Tom Robinson, who's a brilliant songwriter himself, decide to include you on his show, it was
Yeah,
like some kind of nod, some kind of blessing, some kind of, hey, I don't know exactly, but he is someone who gave us, and I'm sure you and many, many other people that I've spoken to that are in the same position, he gave us, like John Peel for different
mm,
generations, and like Janice Long as well, and Bob Harris.
mm,
They are actual musical DJs, actual,
yeah,
not a presenter, not a TV
no.
presenter, actually people who care about music. And it's so much support to artists he gave to you and to me and to other people that I just think it's worth, you know, recognizing that and saying,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, you're totally right. A blessing's the right word. That's how I felt when that happened, and a slight sense of verification, and also just to go, do you know what? You're on the right path. You're
exactly.
starting out, but
Yeah.
and I remember emailing him and saying, look, thank you so much. And I was so pleased and so grateful to him. And he just said, no, it's fine. If you keep writing good songs, I'll keep playing them. I remember he
Yes.
wrote that back, and it's like, oh my God, it's that simple. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, someone's making this simple. And it was, yeah, it was a really important moment. I can remember getting festivals and gigs, using you saying, I'm sure you're the same, and saying, look, we've done a session or we've been played, and that was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's
That's the
let's
thing.
um let's take a chance on that. He has no idea that I don't think the power of how many artists he
Yeah.
um but move forward, shall we say.
Well, I agree, because when someone like Tom sort of says this is a tune, or plays it on your show, what the power, as well as the excitement of being played on radio, and to have Tom say something good about you, what that actually does is take you from the wilderness into being accepted, and then
Yeah.
promote, like you say, promoters or other radio DJs or press people will listen because he has given you a bit of a stamp, and that's massive. It's massive.
Yeah, you're
And just
absolutely
to
right.
just to mention, I hope bosses of Radio 2 and 6 Music and all the rest that seem to be hell bent on reducing the amount of musical DJs who do this job recognize the fact that actually grassroots music in the UK is based upon people like John Peel, Tom Robinson, Janice Long, Bob Harris, actually listening to new music and actually giving it a kind of pass onto the airwaves. That's massively important, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, we do, as you've alluded to, we do live in an age of celebrity DJs, and which, and I know from experience the hard work that the producers end up choosing the shows,
Yeah,
and that's why, on local radio it's interesting because it still feels quite like there is that old school model. There might be less of them, but I know a lot of DJs who work at local BBC, for example, and
okay.
local stations, and they really care.
They really,
Sometimes their hands are tied with
yeah,
playlists,
yeah.
but they'll find a way to get new music in if they like it, and that might not filter down all the way to the top at the moment, but hopefully things will. They're cyclical, aren't they? I hope people go, do you know what? Listeners go, this isn't really working, and so hopefully they'll listen and get people like Tom. But yeah, it's a great tribute. I'm really happy that
Yeah, same
we've paid
here.
tribute to him because he's played a big role in both of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he brought me together with a creator called Phil Meadley, producer,
Hmm.
the Gaslight Troubadours, and we had the chance to an opportunity to support Tom in Dorchester. Just he was doing like a solo show, speaking,
Amazing.
saying songs, and he brought us two together, and now we're making an album. So anyway,
Ah, so
If
good.
Tom's
Yeah,
listening, we
absolutely.
love you, Tom.
We do. We love
Yeah.
you.
So the first few minutes of this podcast is been about
I love it.
love for Tom Robinson.
Quite right.
But let's get back to you, Cole.
Oh, no.
Like I said, it's very rare for me to be, and it's not because I'm some sort of grumpy sod. It's basically, I love talking to lots of songwriters, but it
Yeah.
is rare in which I hear someone I haven't heard before, like in that sound check, and straight away go like, "Oh my God, what is this? I need this in my life."
Mhm.
And so it was, you
Very
were
kind.
sound checking some pomegranate actually, and
Mm.
that track, "What Keeps You," you were sound checking that, which is
Oh yeah.
absolutely stunning. And
Thank you.
what came across to me in because I know you wear various hats. You've got your own,
Mm.
you've got an album you just released under your name called Stacey.
Hmm.
You've been working with India Electric Company. You also play with Midge, so you're wearing lots of hats. But just to talk about what keeps you in that pomegranate album, and
Mm.
some of India Electric Company, it seems to me like
Mm.
there's a yearning in your melodies
Mm.
for that particular set of songs you're sound checking the album. There's like
Mm.
almost like you're searching for something, and
Hmm.
that's also there in the music. There's a slightly like an Eastern element or a kind
Hmm.
of openness that I can hear in Scott Matthews. I can hear in some Zeppelin and Buckley. Am I right on the influences there, or what is it that you're kind of searching for on that album? Because it's stunning. Tell me about
Oh,
it.
that's very kind. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. To be honest with you, it's really lovely to hear that because often you don't kind of get that in-depth feedback. You know it yourself. You write the songs, you put the albums out, and it can be a question of losing yourself in that indulgence of that process. So it's lovely to kind of get that feedback. Yeah, I think India Electric Company, which is just basically me and Joe, and then we stole Midge's drummer Russell Field, who's
Nice job.
amazing. We started working with him 10 years ago, and so he comes and joins us for a lot of our shows. But to go back to the Marine, yeah, it was just the two of us. That was an album. There was a yearning because it was written in a time of, well, a strange time. It was in 2020. We weren't allowed to do shows, and we locked ourselves away. And we listened to India Electric Company is just built on these kind of different elements, the four seasons, you know, of like we're brought up in traditional music and folk, rhythms cultivated from far off lands have always kind of invigorated us and
Mhm.
mesmerized us. Neither of us are drummers, but our love of rhythm is so fundamental to what we do that
Yeah.
we would always go searching, if you like.
Mhm.
And then there's that kind of subtle nod towards electronics and ambience, and obviously the Midge influence comes in there as well, and lyrics from all sorts of places, 13th century Persia, things like that. But the Pomegranate album was a kind of amalgamation of the last 10 years, if you like. We'd moved away from our dalliance of maybe not dalliance. That's probably too dismissive. But our folk roots, we'd move further into a more of a kind of pop and electronic analog synth ways. And we do have this unadulterated love of pop. You know, we do. Those artists you said, absolutely, they're there for us. And Joe was always a big Radiohead fan. And then moving forward, we moved, you know, we did spend a couple of years really listening and referencing a lot of anyone from Billie Eilish to, I don't know, maybe going back through to those old Radiohead records. And yeah, there was a yearning, and I don't know about yourself, but maybe a yearning to find the sound that we were in that moment with India Electric Company. It was such a surreal time, wasn't it? And songwriting, um,
I
you
can
know, I just
explain.
had this whole feeling of being in this underworld, and this myth of
Mm,
Persephone came, hence the pomegranate thing, and
yeah.
this whole feeling of being in this underworld and then trying to come back out for a few months into the light and the spring, and that kind of strange juxtaposition that yeah, all these elements came together and made this record. And you know what it's like. It's such a different thing. You make a record. We literally shut ourselves away for 2 years, and then
Yeah.
you come into the world and you're like, oh, how
Mm,
do we get this record across? How
yeah.
do we put this across? And do you know the funny thing is, I think the way that we probably best put it across is to strip it back and
Yeah.
just give it those core components. Joe's incredible, um, his incredible musicianship and virtuosity, and his ability to constantly push the boundaries and not just accept a standard harmony and standard chord structure. And
Mhm.
that's amazing. And
Well, that came across, a few things from
mm,
what you were just saying. I mean, one of the things that came across at that show, and it's interesting that you say that you kind of there's a traditional folk element there, but like
mm,
two people of our age range, which I think are probably around the same age, like we've grown
yeah,
up with dance, hip hop, Radiohead,
mm,
electronic music. So there's sometimes feels to me, and this might be a bit judgmental, but like I love the folk scene, the traditional folk scene, and the audiences are so generous. But
mm,
sometimes when you're of like a sort of generation like ours, to ignore what we grew up in and go back to just traditional folk seems like it's almost a bit of a kind of pastiche. And what was so
mhm.
great about hearing
That's
you two was
interesting.
like the folk elements there, but like you say, you can hear Radiohead, you can hear like different electronic elements, and also the rhythmic element. What you mentioned, I think often interesting songwriters to me are people that they're not doing the kind of strummy strum drum. They're actually kind of there's a rhythmic element. Like Bowie had that. It's like a
Yeah.
rhythmic element, and it sort
Mhm.
of makes a songwriter, I think, where there's the melody and the hook, but rhythmic, interesting rhythms are something which is it was totally there in your performance and on your album. But that is actually something which I think is really important actually to
Mm,
songwriting, and you guys definitely do that, which is probably
thank
also
you.
what pricked my ear. I think it's rhythm is really something which can make you as a songwriter totally unique, can't it?
No, you're absolutely right, and it's something that doesn't get talked about enough within songwriting. I think it's so true what you say. It really is, and I feel that so strongly. And I think, yeah, as we talked about, you know, working with other people and working with Midge, and in that context, I play bass, and so I'm in the rhythm section almost,
Mm,
and working with someone like Russell, and you kind of grow that new understanding, if you like, of what the rhythm is it underpins the whole thing. And
Yeah.
as you said rightly, it's too easy to just go strummy, especially with a guitar or a mandolin.
Yeah.
It's like that's the easy option, but it doesn't resonate. It doesn't work really at all. And so, and Joe is always fun. He from the very first times of us being kids writing songs, he was always saying, we need to avoid that exact thing, avoid the strummy, and let's try and use rhythms and break some rules, if you like. And within tradition and folk music, yeah, I totally agree. I always have it at my heart that tradition is a guide and not a jailer,
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
try and work with that as a framework. And my utmost um, love is with songs that have been around for 300 or 400 years, and it's rooted in me. But
Mm.
that is a that's the guide, and yeah, we can be caught too much in a framework. And I love that you said that. We can't ignore the fact of the age that we were brought up in. Absolutely not. And then that's why probably you and I still go back to those artists when we grew up listening to. They were fundamental in shaping our listening experience, and then I suppose our writing experience more than anybody. I think you do go back,
Yeah.
don't you? You go
I mean,
back
it
to
seems to
those.
me like just from a little bit I know, your father is known in the area for running open mic nights. My father didn't do that, but he was a songwriter himself. So we both grew up with, I think, quite influential fathers in the sense that they kind of were either songwriters themselves or they were doing music or playing music. Can you speak to that in the sense of like, is
Yeah,
that true for you?
totally. Totally. And I mean, so my dad ran a music shop for like 30 years. And so, we'd always joke, we never had any sofas in my house, but we had guitar boxes, and
Yeah,
we would just, it was immersed in it. It was just, yeah, songs, and go and see him play. And his love definitely transcended and came down through the generations. And I was the youngest of four, and there was always music going on, and there was always someone playing the guitar. And my brother, with siblings as well. And we always need these one or two people in our lives that keep, no matter how the years go on, they keep feeding us these new songs. And
yeah,
here we are all these years later. And my brother, it still does that. He just introduced me to Jake Xerxes Fuzzle, who's an American songwriter, rooted in tradition. But I've just spent the last 3 weeks listening to it all because it's absolutely it grabs me. I'm in awe of it, and still to this day, 30 years he's been feeding me these songs,
that's great.
and that would have come again from my dad, and fundamentally, even if it's different styles of music, it's that love of song, I think, that runs so deep. And
Quite interesting that because I was speaking to someone last week, and I don't know if this is true for you, but when you're creating music, I mean, my head is full of my own songs, full of what I'm writing,
mm,
and if
mhm,
you're recording music, you're just in this like universe of creation. So
mm,
actually, in some ways, like my own listening has like reduced since I've been
yeah,
making my own records, but
yeah,
actually I'm really so grateful when like music fans around me are playing music because in a certain sense I don't, and weirdly I don't seek it out unless
yeah.
like,
I know exactly what you mean.
I had the moment with you where suddenly it's just like Jesus, who's this? If I have that kind of moment, then I'll go and seek it out. But actually, the importance of having people around you, like you said, your brother, your father, and maybe other people too, that are they're not maybe creating music, but they're just playing it all the time, and it's so valuable, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I think that's fundamental as a songwriter as well. You do have to detach yourself away, don't you? Because you're absorbing, you go through this stage of listening to other people and absorbing things and taking references, but you do have to form your own
Yeah,
consciousness within the songs. And you don't write because you want to say something. What is it? You write because you have something to say. As I think that was F. Scott Fitzgerald or somebody said something, and that what that means is that you do have to take yourself and you have to say your thing, and so you can't be constantly whilst you're writing an album having listening to all this other stuff. I think you do well. I that's just for me the way
Yeah, I
I
mean,
see
it's
it.
just something I've noticed a bit with
Yeah,
myself and other songwriters that actually like, because I almost beat myself up about it for a while, going, like,
yeah.
you're not
I
listening
know the
to
feeling.
everything all the time. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, I can't because like
yeah.
haven't got the bandwidth to take it all in and create at the same.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm the same. I really am the same. And there's times when okay, you finished an album, and at this stage, for me, I put a record out a few months ago, and so I'm sort of at that next stage where I think, oh, I'm just opening my ears up again and just coming
Yeah,
out of the cave, and
yeah,
I'll just listen to bits. Your ears get tired, and you do want to start just focusing in on little bits, but yeah, it's overload, isn't it? And you can't have that if you're also trying to put records out. So it is a balance. It's like everything, it's a balance. But yeah, it goes around. The one thing I have started trying to do is just go and see a little bit more of things that maybe aren't out of my in my listening circle. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
and almost like go, okay, well, I think I learned more about performing
Mm.
the songs and how you put those songs across live, because it's such a different thing to putting a record out. And so I'm trying to sort of go and see and different things and go, okay, right, okay, that's really interesting. That song connected with me as a audience member. Why, even though I didn't know that song, why did that connect with me? And
That's
so
very
yeah,
true,
that's
actually. I
it's
had
an
the same thing
interesting
with,
experience.
I saw the Magic Numbers a few
Mm,
days ago, and I think it's Angela from the band sang one song called "Throwing My Heart Away," and I hadn't heard it before. It was just
mm.
bloody spellbinding. Just like
Yeah,
you again, it's that thing. I think songwriters in a weird way are kind of like obsessives, and
yeah.
it can be like a song or an artist or a book or a film or wait. I mean, again, I don't know if it's true for you, but like I can become completely obsessed by something for like almost like 3 or 4 weeks till my head's kind of
Yeah.
immersed itself in all of it, and then chucks out the other end. You know, it's kind of
Yeah, that's really true. Yeah, I'm just writing that down. What was it? Throw my heart away by
it's a
Magic
great
Numbers.
song.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, you're the thing is, Elijah, you're slightly more highbrow than me, because my last gig was on Monday night. I went to see Sophie Ellis Bextor. That's
Brilliant.
a royal, and my wife and I, we suddenly realised that we hadn't danced for quite a long time, so we had a good little boogie. But
Good for you, man.
yeah,
It's
we
great.
saw an amazing support act as well, which was really inspiring, from Australia, called Sumner. So that was great. But yeah, it's really important, isn't it? It's so important to kind of get that in.
Absolutely. So listen, tell me about your new album, Postcards
Mm,
from Lost Places. It came out a few months ago, but talk to me about the kind of what was going on there in terms of themes and
mm.
sort of where you're at and what the songs are about, if they're about anything. Give me a kind of an overview of, or the listeners an overview of that album.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Postcards from Lost Places. Well, it's kind of, I suppose I described it as coming home. My life changed, and I did return to Devon and to Dartmoor. And I was introduced to this incredible old Victorian clay factory. And I walked in, and it's a creative space. And I was mesmerized by the kind of silent stories, if you like, of this place. And I always think that places are like the fabric of our lives, and our emotions and our memories are woven into them. And it was the first time in 6 or 7 years that I'd stopped. We had like 3 or 4 months of not gigging, not touring, and I was standing still. Um, Probably I was kind of at peace creatively. Do you know what I mean? I know this struggle with this creative struggle that's eulogized about in a way. I don't know if that necessarily works for me. I think for years I did do that, and then I suddenly found myself in my personal life happy and at peace. And suddenly these songs were almost writing these themselves. And this theme of place just became so strong very, very quickly. I didn't really intend to write an album, but it's such a cliche, but it did just kind of pour out of me.
Mm.
Um, and I had all these places I would drive home, and there was a abandoned RAF Second World War site. We've got a beautiful little church up the road. I went to the highest working church in England, which is just up the road in Brenttor, and an old 13th century jailhouse, and all these extraordinary places. And it was, as I said, it was almost a time of standing still, and that really, really enabled creativity, songs to kind of flow, and yeah, it was just the most magical time. I loved writing. I loved reconnecting with the process of writing, and I recorded in all these places. It was very raw, if you like. It wasn't. I didn't. There was no point going to a fancy recording studio and recording these songs that I'd written in old factories and things like that. I wanted to be in the space. And I honestly, I loved it. As I said, it was like being at peace creatively, probably for the first time. And yeah, it's wonderful sharing it and slowly but surely sharing it with the world. And
So did you actually record the songs in the places where you
yeah,
wrote them?
yeah, exactly
Well,
that.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
So
That's really cool.
yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, as you can imagine, it did have its challenges, but I also kind of decided early on that it was no point in trying to create this perfect record. I was reading that Rick Rubin book,
Yeah.
Creative Way, at the time. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's like a Bible almost for me at the moment. His thing of the goal of art isn't to attain perfection. The goal is to share who we are and how we see the world. And
Yeah.
I just thought, well, that's it. That's all I'm trying to do. It's a diary entry, if you like. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It
Yeah.
felt like this is a diary entry of where I am at the moment.
Yeah.
It won't always be like this, but this is where it's at. And so, yeah, I'm in this old clay factory. I'm in this old church. I'll set up a microphone and record it and let people almost try and hear the place, if you like, something tangible.
Yeah.
I
Well, I think
recorded a little field recordings, and it's difficult because it sounds slightly gimmicky in a way, but it
that's
really was just me in an old church with a couple of microphones.
no, it doesn't sound gimmicky at all. I think actually what you're hitting upon is some really important stuff there because why, for a start, why not go and make a recording studio in a clay factory or church? It's like, we I think maybe one of the hangovers of like the 80s and 90s is this idea of like every record has to sound like this big
Yeah,
bloody thing, and
that's so true.
it's great and it's true. But then there's also that thing of like from the 70s where they'd work quite quickly in places
Yeah,
that just do make the art.
yeah,
So it's like what's coming across is someone who's actually confident in their songs, confident in their
mhm,
recording ability. And also, I think there's a thing where like you and me probably both have this, I think, where you've kind of battled through ambition. You've got to certain levels
yeah,
of like, critical acclaim and radio play and all that stuff. And there's, you get to where you get to, but actually what comes across as the most important thing of all of it, there's obviously good reviews and radio plays and all that stuff, which is like to be celebrated. But you get to a point where you think, you know what, the most important thing is the song and the
yeah,
record, and that I have a legacy of work that I am
yeah.
adding to. And this sounds like,
Absolutely
if
true.
I've been listening to it, it's a very, very beautiful album. Your voice sounds gorgeous.
Thank you, thank
And
you.
it's one of those things where like, this is me doing me now, and this will
Hmm.
add to my legacy of work. And then the next one will be different again. But it's actually important
Totally.
to capture those places, like you say, the standing still moment, and capture it. It's
That's so true. That's exactly how I felt. It really was. And like you say, there's always going to be someone who, it's someone who tells you you're the greatest thing they've ever heard, and then the next day there's someone who tells you it's absolutely terrible and the worst thing they've ever heard. And I think as long as you don't listen to either of those people and you just continue on and be true to yourself and understand that it's perhaps a connection to something greater than yourself,
Let's talk about
and
that.
a perspective.
Let's talk about that connection to something greater than yourself. I think probably listeners who listen to this podcast will be aware that I myself have a bit of a fascination with that force.
Mhm.
People call it the muse. What is your experience of and process of writing songs with that kind of unseen communication? Is it a muse thing? Like you've spoken about
Mm,
how this album's been, inspired by places,
mm,
but that's creativity on one level, but the actual music coming through is something else. Like, what's
mm.
your relationship with your muse?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never really been asked this, so it's quite interesting because it's like a therapy session. This for me, it's great. Um, well, I always say I'm a recovering hippie. So I didn't do so great at school, and I left, and I did the thing, and I went to India and took myself off and travelled. And I that was although music was all it was always what I was going to do. There was no compromise. I was stubborn in that, and it gets you into trouble and financial trouble as the years go on and all that. And I'd end up in all these places, living in London and living in Paris, and it was always that songwriting was the thing that was my thing. And I don't know if I allowed my a deeper sense of connection to something spiritual, to something. I don't know if I ever allowed that in truly. It would transcend some of the songs, and it would be in there, but it would be very subtle, and it would be lyrically it wouldn't be obvious at all, though maybe, as you know, songs tend to mean different things, and rightly so to different people. This was a time of growth, I think, a growth within my life personally. As I said, I met my wife. I've got beautiful stepchildren, and it was a real time of change, but growth. I think as a human, as somebody who not just a songwriter, but as a person, grew up maybe slightly, and I found myself in these places, in these 13th century churches, looking out over just looking out over the whole of Dartmoor, and you're suddenly in touch with something that isn't just the stream of consciousness and yourself, and you take the songwriting ego out, and I felt like when I was writing the songs that I was, for the first time properly in that moment, I was not thinking, I wonder if someone will like this. I wonder what that'll
Yeah,
sound like. Or should this
yeah,
be a 3 minute song? I wonder if the radio edit, which had always kind of been around me, if you like, I'd allowed in.
mm,
And so, yeah, I think it went hand in hand with that idea of imperfection and finding beauty in the imperfections and the cracks of it and the scars of life, if you like. As I said, I was reading Rick Rubin, I was reading violinist Martin Hayes, Irish fiddle player, his autobiography. Um, I stopped drinking that honestly. And again, it sounds cliche, but that really had a fundamental change. I just was like, okay, yeah, this is probably isn't for me at the moment, so stopped. And it's amazing once you stand still what the power that can give you. Um, and I feel like I'm at the start of something, not at the end of something.
of course.
And that's really a very grounding feeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know where that's gonna I don't know where that's gonna lead, but right now it feels pretty it
It's
feels
so
pretty.
cool because I mean, different, whole different reasons, but I'm in a place of like, in a sense of like reflection upon, past achievements, and then
Mhm,
also that thing of like moving forward and realizing that they want and need to create and be connected to a musical force is still there. And then
mm,
you're absolutely right about a standstill. Like I beat myself up earlier this year going, I haven't actually written a song and it's 6 months in, what are you
mm.
doing? And it was this thing of like telling myself off. And I was like, well, yeah, but on the phone there's about 20 ideas and actually we're releasing
Yeah,
music at the moment and it's okay for a second just to stand still because
absolutely.
like you've just said, you're emerging and opening your ears again. Stuff's now beginning to come through, and it's like, okay, actually, it's
Mm,
still there. It's coming through.
mm.
So it's I think you're really right to kind of just kind of be in a place of reflection as a songwriter is important too.
Yeah, and do you know what? And be that a positive one as well. I was always in a slightly, as I alluded to earlier on, slightly at war with it. The struggle, the creative struggle. I sort of thrived on that. You know, the artist who was, oh, I'm on my ninth coffee today, and it's a struggle to write this song. And it's like I would take on that, that image, if you like. And of course, it never really fitted anyway.
There's a really good, interesting interview I had with Richard Ashcroft actually, who,
Mm,
because he obviously after the Verve success, he then released a
mm,
solo album, and it got
yeah,
some criticism because he'd kind of got married and had a kid, and there's that I can't remember which writer it is, but it was like no creativity or good anything good can happen creatively when there's a pram in the hall, and
mm,
he was like, meaning that like, when an
yeah,
artist settles down, nothing good comes of it because they've lost the
mm,
kind of creative struggle, and he actually was sort of testing this theory going,
mm,
I can't remember which writer it was who said it, but he was like, do you think it's actually the drink that you're drinking which is stopping you from being creative actually and settling down and having kids or getting into that position is actually like more
yeah,
connecting to humanity than anything could be.
yeah,
The idea of having stepkids around or children around, actually
yeah.
seeing that and being part of that is probably like more creative than anything, actually.
Oh, totally, mate.
You know?
Totally. It's transformative. It totally. And for starters, they live in the moment, so
Okay.
instantly, and they don't, and they say what they think,
Mm.
and you know that straight away there's a selflessness. You that you know you have to. keep them alive. You have to look after them. That's magic. So it takes you out of yourself.
Absolutely.
And just the joy that they see in everything is
Yeah.
like you take them to a place and it's like they're just experiencing something for the first time, and it really had that knock-on effect. It was like, okay, I'm writing this for the first time, and it just this, I
Also,
don't know.
something else happens, I think. 'Cause I mean, I was a dad quite young, like
Mhm.
22.
Yeah,
And obviously, when that I'd been signed to a record label and I was full of ambition and everything. But like,
yeah,
I remember at that point of my beautiful daughter Dorothy had been born, it was like, well, right, well, your ambition and your thing's one thing, but like, actually, like, obviously, viscerally and out of love, the most important thing is your fucking daughter. So, like,
yeah, yeah,
whatever ambition you've got or whatever artist struggle is, like, that is coming second to like my daughter in that and
yeah,
her environment and everything else and being a good parent and all that kind of thing. So what that actually did for me in a certain kind of way was like your ego needs to be put down in second place. You are not the most important thing, she is.
yeah,
And then also a really good thing came out of, and I'm sure you might be having this as well or might go on to experience this, is time management became really interesting because
oh my
be
god, yeah,
that thing of sitting around going, I'm waiting for the muse for 3 days
yeah,
and drinking red wine and it'll come, is actually
yeah,
like, no, you've got 2.5 minutes while the kid is like maybe kind of asleep. And so if you're creative, you need to do something in the next 2.5 minutes. And actually, it
yeah,
was kind of like a really interesting thing to actually go,
yeah.
how does my creativity sit in the family dynamic or with the children? And it kind of trained me in a certain way to be
Absolutely.
more instinctive. Are you finding that at all?
Absolutely. Totally. You've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, that's my experience. Totally. I mean, they're a little bit older, so you don't have to worry about that. But the sleep thing, but absolutely, time management, it changed. So, and at first I was like, oh my goodness, I've got less time. What am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to do it. And so, and then of course you kind of learn to readjust. And of course it ends up being a really, really, it becomes a gift, doesn't it? Because you're like, oh, okay, right, I get it now. Procrastination goes out the window, and it's not that I'm in a hurry now to do stuff. It's just that
Mm,
creatively I'm ready to do it, and
yeah,
I can. Yeah, all those other things have gone out the window, and it's focus. I think for me, I'm terrible, undisciplined and not focused, and I didn't study academically, so I didn't perhaps learn those skills either of discipline, of focus. So they came much later, and so yeah, they taught me that, and just being around, you know, it just gave so much positive energy.
yeah,
Even with the struggles and everything, it gave so much positive energy. And now I'm someone that probably thrives and probably, if I'm honest, needs that positive energy. I've too long surrounded by negative energy
yeah,
in my life, and that is draining. Oh my God, that is so draining, and it drains you to your creative core and
yeah,
soul, be it people or yourself.
yeah,
Surrounded by the negative energy, and largely I'll accept I've created my own existence, so fine, that's my problem. But I need to get out of those situations, or if that's not working for me. And um just having that positivity of the children around really it kind of shook me. I was like, oh, okay, I'm feeding off of this, I'm feeding off of it creatively, and this is such a it doesn't matter again what the output is, but I'm feeling this now, and creatively I feel in such a stronger place for it. I love writing songs. It's that simple. I love writing songs, and um, there should be that love shine through and the joy in that, not
yeah.
the
Yeah. Do you know, it's really interesting because it's that thing of like, I mean, there is like, if you're a creative person, there is, I think because we are creative and maybe open up to people or the creative force, you can find yourself in very dark places, but also very positive places.
yeah,
But because of the
yeah,
myth of the artist struggle,
yeah.
sometimes like actually just
That's a good
embracing
word. Yeah,
joy or like
yeah,
positivity can almost feel like you're not allowed to do that or
yep,
something,
absolutely.
and
That's so true.
it's so refreshing to hear you talk on because every episode of this is different. But what's really
Yeah,
interesting, and I never quite know where it's going to go, but to actually talk to someone who's in like a let's say, I don't know, mid-career, having
yeah.
had success and still creating, and actually to embrace joy and positivity in transition is a really,
Mm.
and in a period of transformation as well, is a very
Yeah.
interesting theme here that's developing on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel it. mate. I really do. I feel like, and as it feels like the start. It feels like it honestly feels like it's taken me 10 years to get to this point of
Yeah.
starting to go, oh, this is the point where it's like, oh yeah, creatively I enjoy, and as you said, the word and the myth of the creative struggle, and it's like, oh, okay, and I think, I'm annoyed at myself that it's taken me to this age to get there, and I'm
Mm.
like, but you know what? I wasn't ready 10, 12 years ago as a kid. I wasn't ready as a 20 something to understand that. I'd be equipped with the tools. It's probably incredibly juvenile and young in that sense, immature, and I clearly I wasn't ready to let that in and understand, and I would listen too much to the negative voices surrounding me and then like be shaped by them, be like, oh well, it must be this way then. Oh, I see, right, this is what I've got to do in order to do this. um, and of course eventually you perspective kicks in and you do things. And funnily enough, my stepdaughter's called Dorothy, so we've got a bit of
Hey, got
more in common then.
the gift, well, and then and that is mean gift. It means gift from God. That name, and that's very true.
It's so beautiful. I know, absolutely. It couldn't be further. And I love her. I love that she would just tell it like it is. It's, we're listening to the songs, or like, oh, that one gets stuck in my head. And I'm like, she's annoyed about it, but I'm like, okay, right, okay. Well, maybe I'm onto something there then. Or,
you
oh,
know,
not
like
that one again. Or, but I've got a lot of mandolin at the moment. So my stepson suddenly, it's interesting, isn't it? Watching children take to instruments and
oh
how,
man, it's like a joke. I mean,
yeah.
Dot grew up in a very creative household and was like, mother's very creative, I'm very creative. So it's like she grew up with bands sleeping in the house and lots of
Yeah,
stuff.
no.
But one of the sweetest things, a for me as a guitar player, she's really music's not her creative outlet. It like
Mm,
photography is, but like
yeah,
she learned enough piano and drums and guitar to kind of be able to do that. And so
amazing.
there was a point where she just hearing her play a guitar
Mm,
or sing, and it's come through you and through your father
yeah.
and grandfather's ancestral. But to hear your kid or stepkid play guitar and
Mm,
you've had some influence
mm.
was like, holy shit, this is
Yeah,
like
I'm sure.
sort of like almost biblical.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, you can't put it into words, can you? Because it's that feeling that goes to your very soul and your core. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's quite
let's
incredible.
let's have a little change course. This has been a
Go on.
beautiful conversation so far, but you've been playing in Midge Jules band for I think 9 or 10 years. You've been playing lots of different instruments with him, and obviously Midge is like is one of those songwriters who's had huge success and was great hit writer, but also hugely kind of a part of the whole kind of Live Aid thing and everything else like that. So as a kind of and in that role, you are a musician on stage with a songwriter. What influence has Midge had on you as a songwriter, and also what's it like to be someone who's contributing to someone else's songs in that way?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, the first part of that question, I can remember first going to his house and we sat around in his kitchen and he made a wonderful frittata. He's a damn fine chef, is Midge.
Yeah,
And he said, right, well, we did an acoustic tour to begin with. That was how it all started. So he sat and we stripped back songs like Fade to Grey. And I'd always heard that song, and Vienna, and Dancing with Tears in My Eyes, and they're huge production, all these layers. And then he just played it with an acoustic guitar and sang, and it like hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my god, it's just this melody, it's
yeah,
just this structure and this voice, and it really hit me. It was like, oh, this is a different league. This is like this guy's writing songs and has written songs um, that connect with so many people, and I'm beginning to understand why now. And so when you strip back all those songs, and as a songwriter you learn other people's songs, instantly I feel like you've been given the keys to the house. It's like, oh, okay, here you go, you let in, and you're looking around these different rooms. Oh, this is how you do it, right? Okay. So I loved that process. And it was overwhelming to begin with. I was playing mandolin and listening to these songs and being on stage, and it was an extraordinary experience, really. And then the band grew, and we ended up. We're at the point now where I play bass and synths, and it's a big Ultravox sound and Midge's solo stuff. And um, And so now I think it's it's I'm almost like, I feel like I'm like a custodian of those songs. My job is to play the parts that were on those records. That's what I love about Midge with live. He's always like, we need to do justice to the record. We're not going to do some half job here. We're going to learn all the intricate synth layers, all the bass parts, let's do it properly. And I
Right.
love that level of
Right.
professionalism.
Yeah.
Learned so much from that. And yeah, Chris sadly passed away last year, and so even more like, it's like, oh, okay, playing the bass and doing that job. I am a custodian of his bass lines and his
Yeah.
synth parts. It's like, okay, that's really important to me. It is just now I'm at the point where it's just the most fun. It's extreme, no matter where we are, being on stage and watching all those people sing those songs and see how much those songs mean to people, no matter where you are in the world, it's
Yeah.
like, wow, what an overwhelmingly joyful experience that is. So it does feel like, wow, this is, after 10 years, I'm suddenly feel a little bit more comfortable being on stage and
Sure.
able to enjoy it, if you like.
Sure. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I had to, learning the focus, learning the big thing, and I know this sounds so ridiculously obvious, but I didn't know it, was that you just do one song at a time on stage. And I know that sounds so basic, but my God, I would be that person from, if it was my own stuff or Midge's songs, where I halfway through the song I'd be thinking, well, what's next? And oh, is that
Mm.
tricky? Or oh, what am I doing? And I'm swooping around instruments and running all over the place. And
Mm.
it was always like, just focus on this song and be in the now. And that changed my performance, I think.
That's
It
cool.
changed my level of performance, and I think my enjoyment in the performance. Songwriting, he's just done so much. He's done so much and so many variations on things, and he was playing me some new songs the other day, and it's like, it's still there, that amazing ability to for example, just something small, he writes really good middle eights, and I don't know many people that do that. And that's just something I'm like, oh, it's just like this wave has come over me, and I've been lifted halfway through, three quarters of the way through a song. I've been caught unsurprised, and it's like, oh, wow, this is that's kind of been lost, I think, in
Mm.
modern pop songwriting. It's not very
Mm.
cool, maybe. I don't really understand it, but yeah, I've never been somebody who's been able to do any right good middle eights. So that's been good, amazing learning. And he's it's an amazing, extraordinary ability to connect with melodies of chorus lines, and bam, just hit you. It just hits you. And yeah, it's huge fun. I won't lie, it is now really amazing fun. And
Again, I mean,
I'm very lucky.
it's interesting what you're saying again of that thing of like, so you really hit that on the head about when you're performing your own songs, or particularly if you've got the role like you have in a great songwriters band. There's like there is actually kind of like a lot of stress involved in kind of
Mm,
like you're doing it correctly, and then
yeah.
is this song going to work next, or all the rest of the stuff, and that is I've not actually heard anyone say that before, which is like great advice. Who's like play one song at a time, be in that song and deliver it, and then here comes the next one. I've played obviously thousands of gigs, but no one's ever put it quite so succinctly as that, which is like concentrate on one song at a time. Don't.
Yeah.
And there's a discipline to not letting your head run off or be in your
Yeah,
off
it really is.
you're playing.
Yeah, no, it really, really genuinely is. It's okay to make. I remember the first night we did, and I made a few mistakes, and it was just like, I thought that was the end of the world. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, it's not the end of the world. It's live music. Made a mistake. Know what mistake you made, and then don't do it tomorrow. It's like, it's very basic. You don't need to make that
Mm.
mistake tomorrow. It's just, but like, you can't you can't walk out on stage thinking, oh, my, being in fear of making mistakes. It's like, my goodness, what are you giving the audience there? Some kind of filtered down version of yourself, because you
But
can't
it's
let
true,
go and
that though.
share.
It's so
Why?
true. I mean, making a mistake on your own song is one thing. Making a mistake in front of thousands of people on someone else's song
Yeah,
is another thing. But it's
yeah.
like actually like, I sometimes have this recurring dream. Actually, it's not happened so much recently, but where I can't walk and there's a wall in front of me in an audience, and there's one bit removed, and I'm playing so badly. And
Wow.
to all performers, there is that.
Yeah.
there is obviously like adrenaline and cortisol, and then
Yeah.
fucking fear of
Yeah.
humiliation.
Yeah.
But obviously getting to a point of like being good enough to play, and not worry about it so much is, again, it's great to hear someone just be at peace with and find joy in playing live. That's a great thing to hear.
Yeah, it's so true, and that there's no magic solution for doing. There's no magic like formula. It's like I'm not the best session musician in the world. I'm not even a session musician. I've somehow the path has been laid, and I've been so ridiculously lucky that this opportunity has presented itself. But what I can do, what I lack in virtuosity, I can make up for in just practicing and just
Yeah,
spending all the hours that I have and
yeah,
working, and so that I know these songs inside out. I know his part, I know some of Joe's part, I know the BPM, I know my part, and so it's
yeah.
like, okay, right, I want to know everything about this song that I'm going to go and play and my part and practice it inside out. And I know that's not very cool to say, and it's like,
No,
oh
it's not.
yeah, I'll just wing it, and it's like, well, I can't do that. I
Yeah, dude,
cannot
I'm
be
the
on
same.
stage winging it.
I'm the
It's
same.
not
It's like
good enough.
I used to. It's not like I never had an imposter syndrome because I was confident in my own instinct and songs. But it's that thing of like, one thing you can do if you're feeling a bit nervous about it is like do the hours, do the work,
Yeah,
and then you're not
absolutely.
going to feel nervous. Or you
No,
can do the work and you'll be all right.
that's it. It's really is it. It's black and white, and it's yeah, and I like that. And again, God, it took me 10 years to learn that. And I was oh no, it'll wing it, and then you're out of your depth, and feeling out of your depth on stage, I think, is a frightening and a horrible place to be, and we've all been there.
Yeah.
Um, But listen, when you've played Vienna in the wrong key to front of 20,000 people, then nothing else matters. So it's like,
This memory came back. I was playing in a band at the time. I was managed and being managed by this company and record label and everything. And then the band fell apart, and it was a band like arranged around me and another
mm,
band. And we went and played this university small tour. We played one in Bristol.
yeah,
There's all that kind of like front as a like you're someone in your young 20s, like we're the band and all this kind of stuff.
yeah,
Went on stage and played in front of the university lot, and I broke a string straight away, which is like,
yeah,
oh shit. And then when
yeah.
okay, I'm gonna jump onto piano, played them, so the set list changed because I
Uh,
broke a string. Then started the next song in the wrong key, and then just started the next song in the wrong key. Picked up another guitar, broke that string. The, so I'm there on stage trying to like in front of university cool kids, basically screwing up massively.
yeah.
So then I kind of pass on to the bassist, who was like this critical guy. I'm like, you handle talking to the crowd while I sort this out. He didn't know
Yeah.
what he was doing, so I ended up pointing to some kid in the window who was slightly overweight and sort of poking fun at him for some stupid reason. So then lost the crowd. Basically, of a half an hour set, 28 minutes of it was completely screwing up and being so humiliated by our own sense of
Really?
ego. And
Yeah.
once you've got over that, you're kind of like, right, okay, no one died and got shot, but we were
Yeah, yeah,
last
absolutely.
one, so we'll just have to sort it out. It's kind of
Yeah. It's so good, isn't it? Those moments, and as you said, nobody. But I will always say, oh, well, listen, if you get too ahead of yourself, I always say we're not saving lives here. We're going out
no,
on
exactly.
stage and
That's
playing some songs,
that's
and
that's true. That's true.
and you do need those moments. I really do believe you need those moments where you go to sink to the bottom, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah,
Well,
I
in a
need to take.
strange way, it's quite good for you.
Yeah, totally.
Strange way.
Yeah, and you can't. The fact that you can laugh and tell that story now is a sign of where you're at with it, and that you're at peace with it, and recognizing how important that probably was. So no, yeah, you've got to, and that level of humility does come. I learned that from Mitch as well, and he's played in everywhere and to in front of everyone, and he
Yeah,
still has that incredible sense of humility. And you're like,
yeah.
when you're around people who are on that next level of humility despite their achievements, then it does just you absorb it, and it's
Well,
like,
also that's not true of everybody. So that's probably unique to like Midge or people that have
mm,
humility and success.
yeah,
It's not true of every
no, that's true.
successful person I've met. It's
No,
so that's a
no,
testament to his character, I think.
it is, yeah, it is. And his sense of values as well, family is really important to him, and I was always in awe of that. And and I'm being everything from, if we're in a dressing room, we've got a few hours, he'd either be speaking to his family or, working on songs.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh, okay, this is the kind of professional life and person I want to be. It's
yeah,
like I either want to be working, I want to be phoning home and speaking to my wife, or speaking to my stepkids, and speaking to my family, or or you know what, I could probably just work on that song for half an hour, just
yeah, yeah.
just do a bit of writing. And it's like, yeah, instilling those disciplines and those things into you, and it continues to just be great fun.
Tell me about what advice you'd give a songwriter who's, either starting out or someone who's hit writer's block, or just generally, if you could give one piece of advice to a songwriter, what advice would you give?
That is a very good question. Maybe well, I would revert back to that Rick Rubin thing, because only because I know I've said it already, but only because it did shape my connection with songwriting, which is you're not trying to achieve perfection. You're just sharing who you are and how you see the world. And if you do that honestly, then other people's judgments about it become totally irrelevant. It's just a diary entry, and that sounds a bit wishy washy, and it's not very. I'm not saying maybe try and get the first line in after 27 seconds or anything technical. I do think it's as fundamental as that you're sharing who you are and how you
Or is
see the
that line,
world.
isn't it, that true perfection has to be imperfect?
Yeah, I mean that's beautiful. That's what I'm trying to say. Absolutely. Yeah. It is as fundamental as that, I think. And it, yeah, just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey, and don't be in a rush. There is a big thing. I don't know how you felt, but when I first started out, I was I was in a rush. And I couldn't tell you why, other than maybe that was an ego rush. I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to achieve this. If I haven't done this by next year, I've got to get this review. I've got to get this.
Well, yeah, I
And
think
it's like,
yeah.
wow,
There was, I don't know, I was like that. But obviously, being a father young, sort of
yeah,
slightly
that change,
ludicrous.
yeah,
But there was
had to
also
grow
that
up.
thing of like the myth of the 27-year-old club. If you haven't
Oh
made it by
yeah,
a certain amount of time, then you
yeah,
might as well give up. So there was like this kind of
yeah, that's true.
historic kind of like
Yeah,
music industry thing as well, really, of like,
mm,
kind of, if you're not beautiful and
yeah,
slim and young, you've got no chance. Which is like, I get that. There's like there's a model of that, and that's all fine. But
mm,
actually, that's responsible for like a lot of eating disorders, a lot of depression, a lot
mm,
of mental illness. And it's like,
oh yeah,
actually, I think now probably the industry with with people in a sense, like the kind of different body sizes, like Adele or an Ed
mm,
Sheeran type, or like different
mm,
people that are not looking slick all the time, or Lewis
yeah,
Capaldi. I think, and also age as well with C6 Steve. I think things have opened up. It's like, look, if someone's good and they're really good,
yeah,
they might get their moment. If and again, that is like that. I think this the idea of success is like linked with all
yeah,
that kind of neurosis and sort of drive. But I think eventually, as we've been speaking about, and hopefully what's come across, success actually is carrying on making art and releasing art, and actually that it doesn't matter if that's 10 million or 1,000 listens or even 100 listens.
mm.
It's like a successful creator is someone who's continuing to create.
Absolutely. That's so true. That's the line, and completely subscribe to that, and that's all I'm striving to do, and just carrying on and sharing that, and it's a magical old world, isn't it? We're very lucky people. So
Yeah, absolutely. And well, also lucky, but also there is something to be said for choosing something and
yeah,
committing to something. And luck, to some extent, you do create your own luck. There's
yeah,
certainly, if you're not committed to choosing something, then you're wishy-washy. So I think any artist at a certain point has to go, as you did as a young man and I did, have the bravado and the passion to be like,
yeah.
I'm
It
choosing
is.
this.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
Yeah, it's true. I had the cliche thing at school, even all those years ago. It's like, yeah, but what your career's advice, And I was like, no, I just want to be a musician. I want to write songs, and it's like, no, but actually, what you want to
Yeah, I
do,
had exactly the
and
same
it's like,
conversation. Exactly the same.
and it's so ridiculous, because it's like this is a prestige, really, but it's not. These are the conversations we had,
Yeah,
and in a way, you do need that. It's just that little bit of fire in your belly, just to go, no, no,
it's
no, no. This
interesting,
is what I'm doing.
because also at the moment, like there's so many like now if you want to be a songwriter creator, there's like councils that will fund that. There's groups
Yeah.
like Be Sharp in this area which will like take
Mm.
you under their wing. There's like
Yeah.
university courses in performance or songwriting. None of that was around when we chose
No.
what we were doing. But
No.
also what's quite interesting about that is like, so I think in some ways it's easier to get the support from people
Yes.
than ever before, but actually sometimes within that there can also be like a bit of a malaise of like not
Yeah,
having that instinct. And so
yeah, totally.
one of the things you still need, even though the opportunities are there for you more than ever before, like online or, you know,
Yeah,
in physical realities, like you still need the killer instinct. So there is that
absolutely.
thing still there, you know.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. And resilience. My goodness, if there's
Yeah,
one thing I have got,
yeah,
it's learn how to have resilience. You
yeah,
know,
that's true.
maybe it took me long to learn it, but if nothing else, if I don't do anything else, at least I've learned resilience. And I'd love to, I'd love to teach that to the kids. And
Sure
that's
you will.
something I do think that you can pass on. So,
Cool, I could speak to you for about 10 hours.
mate, it's so nice talking to you.
But
It
let's just
really is.
all the listeners of this podcast, if you haven't already heard of Cole Stacey and the Inland India Electric Company, you should have done. And I absolutely what's the word? I encourage you to go and find Cole's music. We'll link it in the linear notes to this podcast. But I'm going to finish this podcast with a question I ask everybody, which is on this day, here today, at this very second, which song do you wish you could have written?
Such a good question. I'm sure everybody says that. Um, I wish I could have written and been in the room when it was being written and being a part of the process. A song called Song 44 by a band called The Gloaming,
Wow.
because it encompasses everything, every part of my musical journey, be it tradition, it's rooted in tradition, with the Irish tunes. The chord structure's like a pop song. The words are hundreds of years old. They're in Gaelic, and but most importantly, it touches me to my very soul. It's very, it's it's that thing where people say, "Oh, it brought me to tears." This song does genuinely bring me. It genuinely brings me to tears. And to have been in the room when that was written and created, by Thomas Bartlett, Martin Hayes, Dennis Kyle, Isla Aled, and Quivino, then I would have, yeah, I would have loved to have been there. But do you know what? I'll settle for just being able to listen to it.
Oh,
It's,
that's beautiful. I haven't heard that song, so I'm going to check that out. And
please
thank
do.
you very much for such an inspiring conversation and for your time. And
That's a pleasure.
we look
It's
forward to
lovely to
releasing
talk
this
to you.
podcast. And good luck
Brilliant.
with all you're doing, man. Like
Thank you, mate.
seriously, great, great to speak to you. Thank you so much.
And my pleasure, mate. Really great talking to you. Thank you.
Cheers, Cole. That's amazing, man. I'm gonna stick it out next. Well, either I think next week, although it might be today. It depends on how I do with editing. But
Amazing.
if you're up for sharing it on
Oh God, yeah, yeah,
media, that'd
yeah,
be great. But
absolutely.
that was terrific, mate.
I
Really great.
love speaking to you. It's really interesting because it's just really nice to be asked proper questions and just to be on the same journey as someone. Actually,
Yeah,
just that's I think it can be slightly not lonely, but it's really interesting. There's so many our paths have traveled the same way, and that's beautiful and it's lovely to kind of feel that connection with someone on that, feeling the same things. And yeah, it's great. And also it's really nice to be able to share with people something that is like creative first and is just us talking, because like, the feedback that I get from people is that these sort of things they absolutely love.
yeah,
People love hearing. I love hearing about people that I like or know, and hearing their journey and their connection. And it's a rare thing, and I think it's something that is lost amongst all the. Despite people doing podcasts and interviews and stuff, you don't hear it on radio interviews anymore. And so, being able to have the time to have a grown-up conversation as well, it's that thing. It's like we live in this 30-second clip world, and it's like,
yeah, yeah.
no, I want to listen to. I want to. I'm the best podcasts I listen to are the ones that go on for 2 hours. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like I want to listen to a conversation.
Absolutely, man. That's I mean
I
that's.
love what you've done with it. I
Thank you,
really, really do. It's
thank
it's
you.
very, very. It's brilliant how you've done it. I'm really in awe of it. So
I really
thank you.
appreciate that, mate. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and I'll
Yeah, keep in touch, mate, and I'll speak to you soon down the road.
lots of love, brother.
Take
Take care.
care, mate. Lots
Bye.
of love. Cheers. Bye.